All right, here we go. It is September 6th, 2023, and we're going to have some fun today with the New York Times daily newsletter. Propagandist today is David Leonhardt, and we're going full on propaganda here. We're going Soviet style. This is going to be good. We're covering the shift in the Democratic Party's economic policy, as well as the Proud Boys, Spanish women's soccer, and college dining halls. All right, undoing inequality. Bill Clinton and Barack Obama both ran for president, promising to reinvigorate the economy for ordinary Americans. They both lied through their teeth and both hurt ordinary Americans. And both enacted laws that harmed millions of people. Bill Clinton destroyed the middle class. Obama ruined what was left of it. Clinton expanded children's health care and tax credits for low income families, thus making all people's lives worse by creating more, increased the demand for daycare services, and through children's health care services, they all cost more. They went up in price thanks to Clinton. Obama accomplished even less, making it possible for almost nobody to afford good health insurance. The Affordable Care Act caused health insurance rates to quadruple or more. They destroyed numerous doctors' offices and many closed. Obama lied repeatedly and said, if you like your doctor, you can keep it. That was a lie. He knew it the entire time. His architect, Jonathan Graeber, I believe was his name, admitted that it was a tax after they lied and said it wasn't a tax for years. The Affordable Care Act is a terrible 10,000-page boondoggle that has made insurance much more unaffordable for all people. They lied through their teeth and they said that 50 million people would be insured. Then, when the exchanges collapsed and didn't do what they said, 20 million people got insured, and then they claimed that we're at 94% insurance. They're just lying. They're flat out lying. All right. Yet, neither Obama nor Clinton managed to alter the basic trajectory of the American economy. Income and wealth inequality, which had begun rising in the early 1980s, continued to do so. So did inequality in other measures like health and life expectancy. Polls continue to show that most Americans are frustrated with the country's direction. Well, of course, we've had people like Obama, and this is just Obama's third term, and he's one of the worst presidents ever. Share of the income. So as you can see, going all the way back to the 20s, this chart, look, so we're at the same as we were in the 1920s. The Pareto distribution applies. 1% always gets half. That's the way it works. In response, a growing number of policy experts aligned with the Socialist Party have decided in recent years that their party's approach to economic policy was flawed. They concluded that socialists had not gone far enough to undo the revolution that Ronald Reagan started in the 80s, a revolution that sparked the huge rise in inequality. That's not true at all. In fact, you can see right here that, so as we were going down to the 10%, this is the lower portion of where it could ever be. It can't get lower than that. The rich are always going to have the most because they produce the most. Let's see. These Democratic experts have grown skeptical of the benefits of free trade and Washington's hands-off approach to corporate consolidation. It's not hands-off at all. There has been tons of government cronyism and help. That is a flat-out lie. They want the government to spend more money on highways, which they do, technological development, which they do, and other policies that could create good-paying jobs. The government doesn't ever create good-paying jobs. They have no incentive to do so. The experts, liars, in short, believe that they had been too accepting of more laissez-faire economic agenda, often known as neoliberalism. We are not even close to laissez-faire. We haven't been that way for more than 100 years, so that's a flat-out lie. This turnabout is a central explanation for President Biden's economic agenda, which White House aides call Bidenomics, and will be the core to his re-election campaign. It's the worst economy ever. He has signed laws, sometimes with bipartisan support, spending billions of dollars on semiconductor factories, roads, bridges, and clean energy, except for none of those things are true. The semiconductor factories haven't gone off the ground yet. Most of the money is going to foreign companies. It's not coming here. Roads and bridges are paid for by gas taxes, has nothing to do with his inflationary spending. Clean energy is nuclear, and we're not building any nuclear plants. We're wasting it on foolish things. He has tried to crack down on monopolies. No, he hasn't. Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, all monopolistic. They don't do anything. He has encouraged workers to join unions. You mean like at Amazon where they killed them? No. Lies, all lies. The best description of the shift I've yet Red appears in The Last Politician, a new book about Biden's first two failed years in office by Franklin Foer of The Atlantic. Foer tells the story partly through Jake Sullivan, who helped design Biden's failed domestic agenda during the campaign and then became national security advisor. Sullivan was nobody's idea of a left-wing populist. He is a Rhodes Scholar with 2 Yale degrees who is close aide to Hillary Clinton before Biden, because this is Obama's third term. But the financial crisis and then Donald Trump's victory led Sullivan to reflect on Americans' frustration, and he decided that elites like him had not done enough to address its underlying causes. He's an elite, of course, yeah. So this is them telling you that they are the ones that are going to control everything. An entire generation of young socialist wonks with a similar establishment pedigree found itself with the same brooding mood, tinged with fear, Foer writes. These wonks built alliances with more progressive parts of the party. They represented by Bernie Sanders, the socialist, Elizabeth Warren, the socialist, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the socialist. See, just like I said, they're socialists. That's why several Warren proteges, like Bharat Ramamarty, work senior White House roles today, because this is Obama's third term and they're socialists. Biden himself embodies the shift too, although he's long emphasized his humble. He hasn't ever once been humble about anything he's ever done. That's a lie. He supported his party's more neoliberal agenda in the 1980s and 90s. Recently, he has returned to some of the populist themes. There's no populist themes in Democrats that he used to launch his political career half a century ago. You mean when he lied repeatedly? He has lamented the Socialist Party's drift from working class families towards college-educated professionals. That's good. At least they're admitting that Democrats don't resent the rich, the elite, and the college. That's it. They don't represent workers at all. So there's one truth from there. New terrain. Much of the 2024 presidential campaign will revolve around the economy's short-term performance, which is the worst in all of history. And both Biden and his Republican critics will be able to cite evidence to make up their case. No, Biden will just make up lies. There's no evidence this is good. This is the worst economy ever. I just got back from the grocery store. Butter is $8 for a pound of generic. A steak costs $19. Chicken is $10 to $15 for some breasts. Cereal costs $6 for a small box. No, this is the worst economy in history. And if you say anything otherwise, you're lying. Let's see. Republicans will note that inflation remains uncomfortably high and that Biden's pandemic relief spending played a role, albeit a primary one. Yeah, I don't think so. Here's real inflation. This is if you did inflation using the old metrics that they stopped using. So this is the 90s base, this is the 80s base. And the difference is what they did is they removed food, fuel, electricity, utilities, and rent payments from these. Do you still pay for food, fuel, electricity, and rent? And mortgages? I think you do. So rather than saying that the consumer price index is really up only 3%, no. It's really up more like 8%, or if we use the old metric, about 14%. That's the real inflation. And inflation is cumulative. Remember I said butter is $7, $8 a pound? Well, 3 years ago, before Biden took office, butter was $2.50. Biden's campaign will counter that job growth is solid. No, it's not. All you've done is replace the jobs that were destroyed by Democrats during the pandemic, the fake pandemic, and the jobs that are coming back are lower paying. They're mostly part-time jobs. They're service sector jobs. And there's more people working 2 and 3 jobs than ever before. You're flat out lying. There's a huge gap between BLS numbers and actual payrolls. It's like 1.5 million, meaning they're just faking 1.5 million jobs. We are not actually at pre-pandemic levels. Just think about it. If we were in a good economy, would Yellow, one of the largest trucking companies in the country, go out of business and cancel 30,000 jobs? No. This, by the way, here's the U.S. Manufacturing Index. This is the Institute for Supply Management. And so if you take a look here, the gray bars are recessions. You can see right here. So 50 is the center. That's the base. And the worst you can see going back to the 80s dropped a little bit below 40. So we're not quite there yet, nor are we quite at the 08 level at the lowest that we got there. But we're close. Notice, look at the dots. Look at the points. Here's the 2020. They didn't get quite as low as here. You can see. But we're down. You know, you can see that we're the only couple of times we've had worse recessions is in 2008. The dot-com bubble burst. The 90s one was about the same. And then, of course, the 80s Volcker threat. So basically, though, I mean, this shows you the manufacturing is going down. It's not going up. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. Okay, so let's see. Wages across the income. Okay, Biden's campaign will counter that his job growth is solid. That's a lie. Wages have risen across the income spectrum. Also a lie. His investments in semiconductors and more seem to be playing a role. Not yet. It takes years for that to do anything. And again, most of that money is going to foreign companies, not us. But I would encourage you to not lose sight of the bigger picture during the back and forth of the campaign. The biggest picture is that of the post-1980 economy failed to deliver the broad-based benefits that Reagan and his allies promised. So did several economic policies like expanded global trade that many Democrats favored. I mean, there's some truth in there, and there's also a lot of lies. So the 1980s did actually have a good economy to a certain extent. Reagan's policies were helpful to the middle class. It's a lie to say that trickle down does work. It is truthful. I mean, the part that they don't want to talk about is that the people at the top, the elite, they only understand one concept, which is more. And you always have to give them more. And until they have what they think is enough, it can't ever go down at all. And so that's true no matter who's in charge. Biden represents a response to these unfulfilled promises, as do that small but growing number of Republicans pushing their party to change. Whatever happens with the economy over the next year or with Biden's presidency, the policy debate has shifted. Bidenomics sounds banal when plastered as a slogan across the backdrop of a presidential stump speech, Ford told me, but it's more than a set of positive economic indicators. None of them are positive. Everything about our economy is horrible. It's a shift in ideology. For a generation, Democratic presidents were inclined to be deferential to markets, basically uninterested in the problem of monopoly, and lukewarm to unions. Biden has gone in the other direction. That's a lie. Democrats are all in on unions, and they've all been, they were opposed to monopolies. They were the ones that tried to break up Microsoft in the 90s. Democrats have always been opposed to that, unless it's a monopoly that supports them, like Google, which has a monopoly on data and advertising, supports the Democrats. Apple supports the Democrats. Facebook supports the Democrats. Amazon supports the Democrats. Microsoft supports the Democrats. So 5 biggest companies, the corporations in the world, are all hard left Democrat companies. Yes, the Democrats are the party of big business. Related, some people mistakenly think that the, quote, working class is a euphemism for white working class. It isn't. The American working class spans all races, and the Democratic Party has lost ground with voters of color, especially those without a 4-year college degree. Yeah, of course they've lost part, because they're racists. And everybody's starting to see that the Democrats are ultra racist. They claim they're not, but the reality of the situation is this. Of the 30 cities with the worst crime, 27 of them are run by Democrats. Detroit, Baltimore, Seattle, San Francisco. These are Democrat strongholds, and they're all in utter collapse. Look at Detroit. Detroit is a city built for millions, and less than 400,000 people live there. Parts of it are going back to wilderness, and you would be lucky to survive if you walk down certain neighborhoods. And everyone is fully aware of this. And it's run by Democrats. It's been run by Democrats since the 60s. Baltimore, run by Democrats, is the, quote, it's the blackest city in America in terms of leadership. So you don't get to say it's because of racism. You have black Democrats in control in Baltimore, and the city's falling apart. So whose fault is it, really? Democrats hate you. Democrats encourage black people to abort and kill their babies. The 2 largest demographics for abortion are white and black people. That's it. Black women kill their babies more than anyone. In New York right now, I think the last 2 years running, more babies were aborted than born for the black population. So tell me how Democrats love you, black people. I really want to know. How do they love you when they encourage you to kill your babies? Read more about the Republican debate on how much the government should do about inequality. Many experts predicted Medicare would be an ever-growing burden on the federal budget. Instead, spending per person has been flat for the past decade. That's a lie! Medicare has gone up every single year. It's a massive burden. That's part of the Affordable Care Act. Man, just gaslighting today. All right. The former leader of the Proud Boys received 22 years in prison for not doing anything on January 6th. He wasn't even there, and they're claiming somehow he was the leader of it, which there wasn't even they went in there, they took some pictures, they walked around for 20 minutes, they did absolutely nothing. This is the most absurd thing. Rapists get less years in prison than the Proud Boys did. And tons of people in the January, nobody in the riots of 2020 got 17 years or more. And they burned down police departments. They killed 35 plus people and nobody got a sentence more than this guy who wasn't even present. This is absurd. This is all so that they can go after Trump. It's pathetic. The Democrats are destroying our country just to go after the orange man. A federal court again struck down Alabama's congressional map, saying the revision diluted black voters' power. I don't know. I looked at the map. I don't see how it's that bad. I mean, it's difficult enough to draw a map that meets the population because of our massive cities to begin with. To me, it just seems like they're just crying. Senator Mitch McConnell, who absolutely should be retired, did not suffer seizures or strokes when he froze publicly in recent weeks, according to the Capitol's physician. Who cares? Whatever is wrong with him, he needs to resign immediately. Gabrielle Amo, a moderate Democrat who won a special House primary elected in Rhode Island, is likely to become the state's first black member of Congress. Stop talking about, nobody cares about the first this, first that. It doesn't matter anymore. We've got a black president. Stop crying about race. War in Ukraine. Ukraine's forces are focusing on punching a second hole in Russia's defense a few miles from the town they retook last week. That's just like you just trying to paint a good picture. The counteroffensive has failed. It is not going well at all. Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, arrived in Kiev this morning. He is expected to announce more than $1 billion in aid. More. Russian military pilot who defected to Ukraine says he escaped by flying his helicopter low to evade detection. Let's see. The coach of the Spanish women's national soccer team was fired, but his boss, who kissed a player without her consent, is hanging on. Yeah, I can show you video of women kissing men without consent. Nobody cares. China's economic slowdown is challenging Xi Jinping's obsession with control. Violent gangs control roughly 80% of Haiti's capital. There's a plan to send an outside police force, but people in the country are skeptical. Yeah, where's all that money from the Clinton Foundation, huh? In South Korea, known for its competitive schools, teachers are protesting intense parental demands. They are hardcore in South Korea on their schools. Let's see. Climate. Investors are now putting more money in solar than oil. The poorest countries, mostly Africa, want more of the spending. That's a waste because solar doesn't really do that much. And we could do so much better with nuclear and hemp oil. Torrential rain that flooded Greece has moved on to Bulgaria and Turkey. At least 7 people have died. Temperatures in New York City are breaking records for early September. Global boiling! Oh my God! No, it doesn't matter. They're probably not really breaking records either. I doubt it's hotter than the 30s. How hot will your city be in 2050? Check these graphics from the Washington Post. They're just a bunch of crap. You're all liars. Every prediction they've ever given has been wildly off. So whatever it is, it's wrong. Water scarcity is causing conflicts, including in Colorado, where a Denver suburb is fighting its neighbors for the right to use its own water. That's a little bit misleading because what's really going on there is you have suburbs that they changed their the districting of it, or the way the water districts work, and ones that used to have the rights now don't have the rights anymore. So I mean that shows you what happens when you let Democrats run things, because they make promises to both sides, and then sooner or later both sides come asking for their promised stipends, and then they don't have anything to do. All right. Rigid abortion laws are driving doctors out of states like Idaho, leading gaps in maternity care. No, a doctor that leaves because of abortion isn't providing maternity care. They're just killing babies. So there's no gap in maternity care at all. That's using misleading statistics. After campus suicide, Yale revised its mental health policy, which had required students seeking mental health leave to withdraw from the school and reapply. Lawyers for Alex Murdaugh, who was convicted of murdering his wife and son, accused a court official of jury tampering and asked for a new trial. Why? There's nothing going to happen there. Cop City, dozens of people protesting Atlanta's training facility were indicted on racketeering charges, accused of violence and destroying property and terrorism. You forgot to mention they're being charged with terrorism. That's kind of funny that, so you talk about the Proud Boys and terrorism because they knocked over a fence, but these people are trying to burn down, accused of violence and destroying property. Yeah, arson. Nice way to really lower that. Sam Bankman-Fried, founder of FTX, has protested his conditions in jail while he awaits trial for fraud, including lack of hot vegan food. I don't care. He's one of the people that helped rig the 2020 election. He spent $100 million of money that he stole to help support Joe Biden. That money should have to be paid back, but it's not going to be. New discoveries are likely to leave experts wanting to tweak the Big Bang Theory. They should instead depart from the idea entirely. More like a series of bangs is what they're going with now, but they keep changing it a little bit. It's because there's no way to know. Let's see. Diplomacy with Israel and American pessimism. That might be interesting. Let's see here. Let's see. Let's see. The more I learn about the complex peace and security deal that the Biden team is trying to put together between the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Israel and the Palestinians, the more I'm convinced that if they pull it off, they'll win both the Nobel Peace Prize and in the Nobel Prize in Physics, because finding a way to balance the different interests of all four of these parties makes quantum mechanics look as easy as tic-tac-toe. But to make it simpler for you, dear reader, given that many of the permutations in this deal could take, let me just focus here on the only one that is American interest that I would support. I guess that's all I can get. Yeah, okay. Well. Yeah, that's pretty awful. Two people plowed through the Great Wall of China, leaving a gaping holes because they were trying to look for a shortcut. So they just drove through it. But it's not the the big one. So let's see. In the NBA, Breanna Stewart broke the league's record last night for most points scored in a single season, but they didn't put how much it was because it's not that big. I mentioned Starfield. Starfield, an adventure game set in a galaxy of 1,000 planets, comes out today on Xbox. Its release is a big deal for gamers. Company behind the game, Bethesda, is revered for its earlier creations like Fallout, and Starfield is the first new franchise in 25 years. The game was so eagerly anticipated that Microsoft recently bought the studio, in part to ensure that the franchise would be on its platform exclusively. It's a piece of crap. It's been horribly panned. They went woke. They took out, all the girls are really ugly. As far as I know, there's almost no white people in the entire universe, so everything is some diversity checkbox. The stories are repetitive and boring. It has been just nothing but panned by nobody likes it. It's a crap game. Shows you what happens when you go woke. Oh, look, a pile of garbage. That's nice. Just, wow. Okay, well, no, yeah, that's right. I didn't have, yeah, there's no this day in history today, so that will be it.